All right, so let's keep going with reproductive system part 1. Okay, so in the last recording, I left off saying that after puberty hits, the female will start undergoing cycles. Now, there are 2 cycles. Cycle number 1 is what happens in the uterus, and then cycle number 2 is what's going on in the ovary. So let's break up the month into 4 parts, and we're going to look at what happens in each of those weeks. So let's have a look at day 0. So day 0 is classified or is defined as the first day of your period is day 0. So when females get their period, it means that they are shedding a part of their uterus. Okay. Now, here is the endometrium, so which is the layer of your uterus. And can you see here that it's actually made up of 2 parts, the basal part and the functional part. So when you have your period, you actually get rid of this part. Okay? We just get rid of it. It is expelled from the body, and it's called menstruation. Okay? So after that, after your period has finished, what happens to the endometrium is that it actually starts rebuilding itself. Can you see here? Yeah. So day 0 is the first day of your period, and then you're shedding that part of your endometrium, and then you actually start rebuilding it. Let's have a look and see what is happening in the ovary in the first week. Right, here is your ovary. Now, we know that when a female was a fetus, she made a whole bunch of those primordial follicles. Okay? Now, what happens every month is that one of those primordial follicles decides they're going to grow. Okay? Here we go. That one is going to grow this month. Okay? The rest were not picked to grow. They're going to stay put. So one decides to grow. So one follicle decides to be the dominant follicle that month. Okay? And your ovaries take turns. 1 month it's one ovary, the other month is the other ovary. They take turns. Right. So let's have a look and see what happens in week 2. In the uterus has finished rebuilding itself. Okay. So here we have the basal part of the endometrium. That's not what we get rid of. We get rid of this part. It's finished. It's lovely. It's perfect. Beautiful work. So the endometrium is one part of the uterus, but it's also got the myometrium, which is muscle. Yeah? Muscle, smooth muscle. Right, so that's what's happening in the uterus. Our endometrium we have successfully rebuilt it. Let's have a look and see what happens in the ovary. As you can see, that one dominant follicle keeps growing and developing and maturing. Now, at this point, we're going to do a little bit of meiosis. Can you remember here that when we left off, we had only just doubled our genetic material? Well, we do our first split here. Okay? So after the dominant follicle continues to grow, it does its first split. Now, for us females, we get rid of things that we don't want. So this one, so here's all of our genetic material. Half of it is going to go here and the other half is going to go here. The one that we don't want, we throw out. It gets reabsorbed. Off it goes, don't want that one. And then what happens is that the one that we kept is released from the ovary, okay? So this process happens at about day 14, and this is called ovulation. Can you see how the egg kind of hatches from its follicle? Yeah, and that is ovulation. All right, so let's have a look and see what happens in the 3rd week. The endometrium is finished rebuilding itself and it's kind of getting a little bit hopeful and excited that you may fall pregnant this month. So it's going to provide us with nutrients, okay? The glands are starting to secrete things. These are the yellow guys, okay? So make sure you understand where it is in this process. Label that on the image, okay? This is where we got rid of all of our top half of our endometrium. This is us rebuilding, and this is us being hopeful. Hopeful, the endometrium is hopeful every month that you will get pregnant. Let's have a look and see what happens in the ovary, okay? Oops, go back. So after ovulation, the follicle collapses, and then what happens, that follicle is now called the corpus luteum. Now that is a very important structure because the corpus luteum actually releases hormones. But here's our little egg patiently waiting. Let's see what happens in the last week. Now, if fertilization hasn't happened, then the endometrium starts to break down again. Okay? It will start to break down, and then you will get your period. Now, again, if fertilization hasn't happened, then the corpus luteum will actually shrivel up and also break down too. Okay? So here is your little egg. If you have that little egg has not been fertilized, and it'll go out, it'll be removed from the body along with the top half of your endometrium. Off it goes. Okay? It'll just be shed along with the endometrium. The top half of the endometrium. It'll all go out with it. Okay, so here we have a little picture showing all the stages. Look, these are the primordial ones, follicles. Here's the follicle kind of maturing. Here is ovulation. Here's your little egg. How cute is it? Okay. And then this is a corpus luteum, and then it degrades if nothing happens, if there's no fertilization. All right. I might stop it there and let you catch up with your notes.